Today, I'm going to need your help. I need you to decide if the story I'm about to tell you belongs on this page, the True Heroes page, or maybe it's more like a true crime story, or should it be on both pages? I don't know. You listen and decide. While Nelson Mandela became the global face of peace, Winnie, she chose war. She fought apartheid with unmatched fire, fearless, unrelenting, loud. She turned rage into resistance. But this is not a fairy tale. There was violence, there was betrayal, and there was one teenage boy whose death would change how the whole South Africa saw her forever. This is the real story of Winnie Madikizela Mandela. She was born in 1936 in the village of Bizana in the rural region of Transkei during one of the harshest eras of South African segregation. Her parents were both teachers. Her name was Nomzamo, she who tries. And she did. She moved to Johannesburg in her 20s. She became the first black medical social worker at Baragwanath Hospital. And she didn't just sit in an office. She investigated why black babies were dying in the townships. She worked with families who had nothing. She saw apartheid up close and she decided that she was not going to sit quietly through it. Then in 1957, she met Nelson Mandela. He was already a lawyer and an activist. He was fighting apartheid through peaceful protest and underground resistance. They got married a year later and they had two daughters together. But then the fight escalated. Nelson Mandela, he didn't just get locked up for talking too much. He co-founded the ANC's Umkhonto Wesizwe, Spear of the Nation. They were bombing government buildings. They were not hurting civilians, but they were sending a very clear message. We're done playing nice. Then in 1963, he was arrested, tried for sabotage in the famous Rivonia trial, sentenced to life in prison. At this time, Winnie was just 27 with two babies. The state made her their next target. They banned her from public gatherings, arrested her over and over again. In 1969, they locked her in solitary confinement for 17 months, 200 days of that, completely alone, no light, no toothbrush, no lawyer, just isolation. And somehow she came out louder than before. In 1977, they banished her to a rural town called Brandfort, far from Johannesburg, just alone. She arrived to a house with no running water, no electricity, and spies watching her every move. So what did she do? She opened a clinic, a soup kitchen. She kept organizing. She refused to be erased. Over the years, Winnie became a symbol of defiance. While Mandela's face was banned, like literally, you couldn't print his photo in the news. You couldn't say his name. Winnie became his voice. She gave speeches. She marched in the streets. And she kept saying his name until the world could not ignore it anymore. By the 1980s, people were calling her the mother of the nation. But this is the part that people like to skip. The part where the line between hero and warlord started to blur. Winnie formed a group of young men around her called the Mandela United Football Club. On paper, they were bodyguards. In reality, they were more like a gang. They beat up anybody that they considered a sellout. They tortured suspects, informants, and then came Stumpy Sepe. He was 14 years old, a teenage activist. In December 1988, Winnie's football club, they abducted him and three other boys from a church safe house. They accused them of being police informants. There was no proof, just rumors. The boys were taken to Winnie's house in Soweto. They were beaten, tortured, and days later, Stumpy's body was found in a field. His throat had been slit. The man who confessed to killing him was called Jerry Richardson, the leader of Winnie's security team. He said Stumpy was killed for being a spy. Others said it was to silence him because he had witnessed something. I don't know. Either way, the violence happened under Winnie's roof. And this wasn't the only scandal. Winnie had also publicly endorsed something called necklacing, burning suspected traitors alive with tires and petrol, a form of street justice that terrified communities. Her exact words were, "Together, hand in hand, with our boxes of matches and our necklaces, we shall liberate this country." In 1991, Winnie was found guilty of kidnapping and being an accessory to assault. The court said she was present during the beatings, and she got 6 years, but on appeal it was reduced to a fine and a suspended sentence. Then in 1997, during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission hearing, it was made official. Winnie Mandela was politically and morally accountable for the gross violations of human rights committed by the Mandela United Football Club. That sentence stuck. Meanwhile, Mandela had been released from prison in 1990. And yes, they appeared together at first, smiling, holding hands. But inside the house, It was over. Nelson Mandela later said, "I was the loneliest man during my marriage to Winnie." He said that she had changed, that she was no longer the woman that he once knew. There were also rumors that she was having an affair with a younger ANC lawyer named Dali Mpofu. Winnie denied the affair, but the whispers never stopped. Then in 1996, Mandela officially filed for divorce. He said that their marriage had ended in pain. He didn't even attend her 60th birthday. Winnie stayed in politics. She became the head of the ANC Women's League. She was a member of parliament, but scandals kept following her. In 2003, she was convicted of fraud and theft related to a funeral fund scheme. The judge said that she had used her position to endorse fake loans, many of them to poor women who couldn't repay. She denied benefiting personally, and part of the conviction was overturned, but the damage was already done. Still, she was never completely erased, because to many poor black South Africans, Winnie was the struggle, not the peace talks, not the Nobel Prize speeches. She was the fire, even when that fire burned everything around her. She died in 2018 at age 81. Her funeral was held at Orlando Stadium. Thousands came. Cyril Ramaphosa gave a eulogy. Julius Malema cried on stage and shouted, "They tried to erase you, Mama, but we are still here." Winnie Mandela, she turned rage into resistance. She carried a movement when others were too scared to speak. She raised fists while her husband sat in a cell. But she also presided over torture, over lies, over death. So what do you think? Does Winnie Mandela belong on the True Heroes page? Or does she fit better on the True Crime page? Maybe she belongs on both. But remember, no hero story is black and white. Let me know. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoy stories like this, please follow me. I tell them all the time.